Welcome to Austin, Texas. Welcome to the new podcast studio.
Yeah, the new studio.
Yeah, the new office. Can you do me a favor? I mean, there's so many different ways that I can introduce you. How do you normally introduce yourself these days to the market?
Wow. I guess I'm a guy that's been in the industry 36 years and love what I do. And we're uniting the builders of the digital age.
So you're the founder of Infrastructure Masons. And so for people that are listening right now, one of the things, I don't know if you remember DCAC this year, I love DCAC from a perspective of it's a cheaper conference, a little bit more affordable. So we get a new crowd every year. And this year I asked how many people had been in the industry for only 1 year or less than a year. And easily 1/3 of the hands in the industry rose or in that room.
Yeah.
So of the 1,800 people that came, at least 600 or 1/3 of them had only been in the industry for a year. So there are people that don't, this industry has celebrities, I always say. I'm sure you hate it as I talk about those things, but there are 10 luminaries in this earth right now that represent most of the voice for this industry, and you happen to be one of them. And we're here because one, I got that privilege of meeting you years ago, and I think you were probably still running, was it eBay or PayPal back in those days?
You were at HP or something, I remember.
And then obviously stayed when you were at Uber.
Yeah.
But you know, when you launched Infrastructure Masons, what was the vision behind that? Because those people that aren't listening, that don't know about Infrastructure Masons, there's a lot of people in this industry that know exactly who you are. And there's some that don't. We want to touch them too, right? So if you could, give me the cliff notes real quick, because I think it's going to give value to context because you're here because of this report that you...
So April 2nd, 2016, I started Infrastructure Masons. There's a very specific date. I was in between eBay and Uber. And I really wanted to get our community back together. So I'd done, pardon me, I'd done stuff with Data Center Pulse for years. And eBay got so busy. It was like, I can't.
Collateral.
Time-wise, it's so difficult to go back and make things work. I'm like, I got to remedy that. But I also want to do this a little bit different. So I said, why don't we go back and unite the builders of the digital age here, the people that are making the decisions. Driving product and all those things.
You know, Christian Bellotti, Joe Cava, Peter, you brought in all the biggest luminaries.
It's like 9 names of people. I said, hey, I think I'm looking at doing this. And so the kind of founding members. And, you know, the thing was, we didn't want to do what we'd done before. We've been in the Green Grid, Data Center Pulse, by 24, like all these. And they're good groups. But how can we do this where it's about the people? So we said, let's leave our companies at the door. So we established it as a 501c6. So it's a professional association. And we said, if we can leave our companies and at the door and connect as professionals, then we all kind of work together on things. And if you change jobs,
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's you. It's about the person. And that was really important. And that's stayed true all the way forward here. And so 2026 is our 10-year anniversary.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and it's awesome because I had never expected this to grow the way it has. But when you put together a community of people that actually want to be there and they have an affinity towards that group, they're going to participate. And if you're doing things that are actually meaningful and important, because we believe that people drive innovation that leads to efficiency. It's very simple. Like without those people, you can't get that stuff done, and you can't optimize those things without really being creative. And that's across the board. So iMasons was started that way. And this 10-year anniversary, we're going to celebrate the entire year. We got all types of stuff because if you look at the community, we're about 6,000 people around the world. It seems small when it looks at how many people are in it. But just the advisory council alone represents $1.5 trillion of infrastructure across 130 continents, or 130 countries. $1.5 trillion, them personally, what they've driven in their career. So you look at that is influence. But if we unite on those causes, we can make a compounding impact the right way.
I totally agree. I mean, it seems as though when I was on the outside looking in, it was really just designed for the captains of industry. It seems like now you've really transformed it to where it's welcoming to all new entries to market. Anybody that's been in the industry for a year could join it as an example.
Actually, it's all. So if you look at it, armed forces veterans are free, as are students. And then companies come in and they're partners that help us grow. But everyone plays a part in this industry. Sure. It takes all of us to actually make this work. And that's where everybody is welcome in the group. Well,
listen, I appreciate you introducing yourself because there are people, like I said, believe it or not, there's some people that don't know who some of these big captains of industry are. And that's a shame. But that's one of the things that we're trying to do with this podcast. Christian was one of the guys that gave me the idea, which was I do want to memorialize the beginning of this industry, because I feel like today I still work amongst the Henry Fords of our space. Those digital like the infrastructure masons groups that you put together, they were the pioneers of this industry. And if you look back in time, the automotive industry probably wasn't forward thinking enough to go and codify what that was happening at the time when the Dodge brothers and the Ford family and the people at Buick and GM and then watched how that transformed humanity and had an impact on society. I believe that this industry has the ability to have a greater impact on humanity since powered flight, or maybe even since the automobile industry, right? So there's a lot that we can unpackage, but you contribute as a writer to a lot of things. You participate in Interglobix magazine, which we have a copy of it here. But the genesis behind this was, as I said, like this is an example of what I do with my market reports every year, right? So I get them in real time. I read them digitally in real time.
3 inches thick, man. That's a lot of reading.
Well, because I will go off grid for 3 days without anybody bothering me, without an email, and I will reread all these again. And then try to understand how I analyze and interpret the market trends and figure out how to steer my ship ahead of the puck, right? So I read a lot of different ones, but this one in particular, not that your other infrastructure mason state of the industry reports haven't been incredible. In fact, for anybody that's listening, if you've only been in the game for a year or two, or have you been here for 10 years, you should be reading. I can't recommend everything to read, but infrastructure mason state of the industry report has your fingerprint on it, has Bill's, it looks like, on it, and some of the things that has been, I could be wrong, but
it's the community. I mean, we really gather this across 500 professionals around the world have provided direct input into this. And it's important because we give a context that you can't really get anywhere else.
I agree. It's different than, say, JLL and CBREs and the Morgan Stanley. This is just a completely different report. And I think that it does a better job of, some reports just give you massive volumes of information, but they won't correlate certain things to others. So you don't understand how one thing is. They may tell you that, hey man, there's a lot of car accidents going on right now. They're not telling you that it's because the cars are failing or the brakes are failing or the tires are failing or the drivers are failing. They're just telling you there's a bunch of car accidents sometimes. This kind of helped me diagnose certain things that I had blind spots in other reports. So between some of the things that you're writing, the Infrastructure Mason report one where I said, hey, you know what, Dean? Not everything is... This report is specifically, I think, was worth unpackaging like this, because there's a lot of people that aren't going to read that report.
Sure.
And that's okay, because there was plenty of years I operated in this industry where I just listened to you guys talk and I wasn't out reading reports on my own.
Yeah.
But you are one of the most influential people in the world in this space, and you had your fingerprints all over this report, along with the greatest leaders of this industry. I think it's probably the most relevant report that I've read in a long time. And this, I mean, I could go back to the date of this one. It's just whatever the month is that you released it.
April 2025.
Okay, so this one I didn't get around to reading until after DCAC because I was behind.
You got a day job, huh?
Look, I can't keep up. But I'll tell you, like, this is still relevant if you read it in September.
100%.
Right?
Yes.
So I wanted to unpackage this report a little bit, the genesis behind where you got this, and then maybe we'll dovetail into some of these other things you're doing as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't have any agenda other than I want you to help me double tap on this topic for the listeners.
Sure.
And I want the listeners, man, if they're driving to work, if they're at the gym, if they're doing their morning walks, the expectation they have of this podcast is when they get done listening to it, it should open the aperture in how they view the industry. And if they're smart, they'll understand how they have an impact on what's being written about in this report. That's the objective. That's my intent. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So listen, you don't need my guidance now, understanding my intent. Tell us what you got out of this report and the genesis behind it.
Yeah. So let me back up first. This is the second annual report we've done. So 2024 is when we started it.
Okay.
And the reason was that we have all this internal knowledge and experience and things from all these people all over the world. We have meetings that are going on. And but all this information seems to be inside the house. We thought,
best kept secret sometimes.
Yeah, but we never really thought about it because it was so valuable to the different people and the exchanges and conversations and, collaborative work we do and things. And as I said before, it's a representation of, people that have real influence in the industry as far as like they're buying, building, providing, just everything about this digital infrastructure engine. And so in 2024, we'd come up with 4 Ps, and it was power was the number one issue. Then we had people. then we had perception and planet. So if you think of those four things, power, it was about access to power. 2024, really, if you look at the way things were going up, is where we had massive growth. Massive. We'd never seen anything like this. And I've been doing it 36 years.
Yeah.
And people shortages. We got so many people that are actually graying out like myself, but also we don't have the pipeline filled up. And you and I talked about this the first time I was on the podcast. Yeah. Then perception, we're starting to get pushback from the community on, what are you building? Why are you here? What are you doing? And the last one was, we're starting to rapidly increase the industry. How are we doing this sustainably when it comes down to building responsibly? And how are we doing this and lowering carbon? So the climate accord that was born in 2022 at Christian's house.
Yep.
So those are the four. And a couple of macro trends that came out of that was we need to move the data center to the power. Pretty simple concept. We don't have power in the right place. We can't get transmission lines, so we should move the data center to the power.
And that's a completely different shift and pivot, right?
Yep. So then we had this other thing about, well, if we did that, then we could master plan these things and there would be a clean energy zone. Well, it would be a master plan community, town or city size, around clean energy that serves multiple industries, including multi-tenant data centers. In other words, you plan it from the beginning.
Data center cities.
Yeah. And now if you look at what's happened in the last 12 to 24 months, it's organically moving that way. Right? Abilene, Texas, to what's going on in Saudi Arabia, to the thing, like it's everywhere.
We're going to the energy.
A little bit of just, that's context in 2024. And the predictions in 24 was we were going to double the industry in 5 years and triple in 10. Cute now, right?
Yeah.
Fast forward to the 2025 report, and we doubled the industry in 2 years. It was predicted, by the way, by Eric Wilcox when he was at AWS. Yep. And he told me this stuff's going to happen. And he did 3 gigawatts of stuff across 800 sites. Like, just incredible stuff, right? Now he's over at Fleet. And he's doing these massive data center builds, right? But I just remember, we have all these conversations with these people, and they're just gold that you don't get from other things. So then you look at the 2025 report, we said we did double in 2. We added 80 gigawatts just last year. We're adding 100 gigawatts this year, just in the power side.
So let me double tap on that. So for people that aren't listening, how many gigawatts of capacity? I think a lot of people use 1994 when Amazon.com went live. Is like, that's when the internet kind of launched. We both know that's not it.
Yeah.
But let's just say we did use 94 to now we're in, even if this is 2024, we're in 2025. So we're 31 years later. And in that time frame, how many gigawatts have we built on this earth?
Okay, so I'm going to go back. 2021, there were 7 million data center locations. This is everything from the street corner 100 kilowatt thing all the way to the gigafactories.
Yeah.
They represented 104 gigawatts of capacity. Okay, that was 594 terawatt hours of energy, which represented 2.4% of the global energy draw. That was digital infrastructure, the engine.
That was global too.
Yep.
So go ahead.
So it's 104 gigawatts. Now we added 80 gigawatts last year. So now just where we are today, as of the report, was 205 gigawatts. So the doubling in 2. Yeah. Now live, this is very different, all the different stages. Live was 55 gigawatts drawing power. There's 138 gigawatts in the pipeline in the US alone.
And hold on, that 55 gigs took how long to build? That's what I'm saying.
30 years.
That's what I'm saying is,
yep.
And now what took us 30 years to build, people aren't listening, we're going to triple again in the next 2, right?
Insane.
And I think that people don't understand. Some people got here and they thought that this is business as usual.
Yeah. I mean, Sun Microsystems, eBay, PayPal, Uber. If you just look at that, 30 years, my first 30 years, there was always this, we're going to double density, we're going to do liquid cooling, we're going to double the industry. Every year it was basically efficiency gains. And we just had a steady clip. And then 2022 happened. End of 2022, when ChatGPT came out, it started, and then it literally went linear.
Yeah.
Finally.
And it seems as though there's no end in sight right now. I think that there's some people that are predicting this will be a run in which the greenfields will start slowing down in 3 years from now. I've heard 5.
Okay.
But listen, when I was talking to one of the largest hyperscalers in the world, they're prepared for 5 at a minimum. Mm-hmm. What are you hearing?
I'm hearing, so there's a lot of bubble, where this is going to burst and all those things. There's a very big difference because I lived through the dot-com bubble.
Yeah.
I was a son right in the middle of all that, right? And you watch things just erode overnight. Today, the most valuable and largest companies in the world are sinking more money ever in infrastructure to serve a customer base that is massive already. Think of the hyperscalers today. What are they trying to do? Retain the users on their platforms. They have billions of users on there, enterprises, individuals, all of that, the cloud platforms. This is an all-out arms race.
It is.
Period. And that is between those companies and countries.
Yes.
So this growth that's happening is because the world is consuming it, and we are just starting. You probably hear this all over the place that we're just scratching the surface. When I say that's true, it is absolutely true.
So what I tell people is what 2025 is for our industry is what 1925 was for the automobile industry. And we were still building Model Ts till 27. We are in our infancy right now. I tell people all the time, this is the worst AI we'll ever use in our lives, right? But it's like, I'm not even sure if we're at the rotary phone version of telecommunications yet, you know, in terms of how long we've been running.
Yep. And if you look in the report, there was a couple things that popped out this year, which was, if you look at the massive growth that's going on, it's all for training. These are 100,000 GPUs in a cluster. Yep. So you have this 1.7 trillion parameters being slammed into this system to act like one brain, and then massive, right, training that goes on. But when it's trained, and by the way, it takes 505,176, I think it is, megawatt hours to train a massive model like that once. 1.7 trillion.
And then you pull that node out, or what do you?
So the way it does is it takes all this data, it creates, you know, basically trains everything, and then you have a usable model, and that model can infer anything about anything, anywhere. So inference is about using the model, right, by companies and people. So you train, so you can infer. And that inference right now is less than 10% of the draw globally. 90% of the power draw and the demand we got is for massive training clusters for the biggest companies in the world.
So will that spike down, the demand for energy taper off?
This is where efficiency comes into play. We've watched this cycle so many different times. We have to get more efficient at it. Is bigger always better? No, they're doing all these models that are now saying, this is really good at marketing. This one's really good at image generation. This one's good at generating source code. You'll have these custom models. Small language models, and then you're going to put your private data in front of it, and you're going to now fine-tune your own private model. So you take a base model like Mistral 7B, 7 billion parameter model, really good at generating source code, and now you use that, and you start developing things internally. But that model itself is 12 gigabytes. Once it's trained, it takes a lot to train that, but it's still a small model. That fits in one GPU's memory.
Wow.
Which means now you could put 16 GPUs in a server. You could put 16 to 32 models in, and you could run parallel inference on all of them. Which one gives me the best? Or you could say source code, image generation, right? Podcasts, create content. Like it can do all these different things. That is going to start doing the consumption. Here's another thing in the report that's really important. Enterprises have not figured out how to consume AI yet. Enterprises are where the demand will come. Enterprise companies today, when ChatGPT came out, everybody got all excited, and all of a sudden the security officer said stop, and they banned it in many, many companies.
Just like the phantom note takers, on a lot of companies are regressing from the phantom note taking on Zoom calls and Teams calls because it was just unnecessary, maybe, or they just were too scared of it. Actually,
the primary risk in all of this was your trade secrets, your IP, your intellectual property, all of that can be lost.
Oof.
So this is the dilemma that people are facing, is especially in enterprise companies. Let's take an insurance company like Allstate.
Yep.
Right? They're not a technology company per se, but their trade secrets about how they deliver insurance policies to their right insured people is what's important to their business. If all of their contracts and different things are ingested in a model, and then Progressive can go back and say, tell me about Allstate's policy. They know everything about Allstate in 6 seconds.
I wonder if that's avoidable in the long term.
It is. And this is the trend. This is my point, is there's a repatriation happening. So the enterprise companies are starting to figure out that I need to control my destiny. I have these massive things that make it really easy. Like Google does an amazing job. Gemini is woven into everything. But the challenge is it's woven into everything. That means my docs, my text, my everything on that platform, I can reach it all. but it's all there. So they have to figure out ways in which they isolate the data so there isn't leakage into models. And suddenly you have this inadvertent, intellectual property, trade secrets, et cetera, going out. So this is what the security officers at enterprise companies are worried about. So they said, our crown jewels, our trade secrets, or our source code, or something, let's repatriate that back and create our own models. Now, this is where the ripple happens. If you think about training massive models, that will continue to go. Every one of the major hyperscale platforms are super important and will continue to grow. But companies are going to figure out a hybrid model to say, I need to keep my own things, my moat around my data, my trade secrets, those types of things. So they're going to start to create their dedicated clusters, their dedicated fine-tuned models for them. And they'll still be using all the different platforms, but they're going to control their crown jewels. Now that means is they start going back and figuring out how to optimize for their own performance, for their own users. Again, if they can weave in AI to Allstate doing insurance claims that automatically handles it as agents on their custom models with their inference actions, everything becomes easy for them and they get more efficient. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you're telling me well, first of all, for those people that are listening, they think that what percentage of the G1K of the Global Fortune 1000 is even in the cloud? Like what percentage of compute today exists on-prem at the enterprise level, and what percentage is in someone else's data center, meaning the cloud?
The definition of in someone else's data centers, that's all blurred, because remember, the cloud was going to kill data centers.
Yep.
The cloud just exploded data centers. Why?
Right.
Because the hyperscalers grew so fast just in cloud, they couldn't do it all themselves. So they partnered with everyone.
Yep.
And that's why you see these massive, single tenant or multi-tenant, but large facilities with entire halls dedicated to the cloud
One
players,
client.
et cetera, right?
Mm-hmm.
One client or two or three maybe, and then you look at like Aligned that just sold for $40 billion.
Right.
They've got 13 clients,
Yeah.
right?
And that's what he wanted. I mean,
Yeah.
You wanted to have a small target saturation.
Yeah, absolutely.
But my thing is there's a large percentage. I would say more than 50%. The last numbers that I heard people throw around were still in the 80s. 80% of the enterprise is still on-prem. Does that sound right, or is that too high?
It is. So in the report, actually, we talked a little bit about this in 24, that the penetration of cloud, it's still 20 to 30%.
Yeah.
But it's all relative.
But it's not. Well, it seems like we're going to be solving for, like right now, a lot of us in the labor space are trying to solve for delivering for the hyperscaler or the operator that's building for the hyperscaler. But now we're going to be taking these AI compute density loads back to an on-prem basis on a smaller data center base that someone's going to want to keep.
And let me give you context on that, because these massive centers, your first question, will continue to grow.
Yes.
Now, will they taper a bit? Probably, because we're in the biggest growth in our history. But the large language models still need to be trained. They're still very valuable. But what we'll see is a massive number of small language models that are private and personal.
Yes.
Okay, so focused for businesses. But what that also means is we're going to be shifting from 90% training, 10% inference.
So it says in this report, the whole model will shift
to 90% inference. Who's going to consume that?
But with the energy demand of that, it will be different than what you're doing in a large language model mode, right? So
it is. And it reminds me of, okay, I'll give you an example. When I was at Uber, we had this planning challenge, which was we had two peak seasons. Halloween, tripled rides. New Year's, 6x.
Oh, yeah.
So when that happened, then you think, oh, it goes back down. Nope, that became the new baseline. Then the next year, 3x and 6x again. We had to plan for those two peaks, which were buying a lot of stuff that's not used throughout the year. Then what happened was global adoption. They started going around the world. And then the time zones come in, and then people are going to sleep, other ones are going on. And suddenly this tapered to where we've got a predictable growth.
Interesting.
So when you think about training, it is massive, runs going on all at once. So woof, these huge things go from 20% to 140% of power draw, right? And then down to 40 and up to 120, and it tapers up, it continues to go. If you look at inference, now it's going to be closer to the user. Our killer edge app is here. It's called Inference. Yep. Finally, it took 10 plus years, but here it is. And I see this personally in my own stuff that we're rolling out. The most important markets are going to be the cities. It's where the people, where the action's happening. And the model of what's going to go in those cities is going to be these 100 kilowatt to a megawatt type things. So I look at it as three types of look at it. You've got far edge, which is going to be the thing closest to the user, and there'll be smaller deployments. You have edge, which to me, edge is still in metros. Think about metro data centers that happen to be in the right place already. They have
they're
capacity.
in the suburbs, though. You're talking about with interconnections back to the carrier hotels, but
yeah. But the point is that network, if you look at New York City or LA or Chicago or anything, that entire radius around those cities is still within less than a millisecond. It's like right next door.
Yeah.
But you're going to use all of those because everyone thinks that these multi-tenant older data centers are not useful. They're missing the point. They're perfect for inference. Absolutely perfect.
So we'll just be retrofitting all those older data centers that we built. That 55 to 60 gigs that's online right now in the US is probably going to have to be retrofitted, at least the mechanical permutation, to support an AI density workload.
So it still comes down to what and when.
Interesting.
If you look at it, when we're looking at, let's just take the GPU things from NVIDIA. It started with V100s, okay? 10 kilowatt boxes, 16 GPUs in it. Then it went to A100, then H100. Then it went to B200s. Now it's going to GB300 N72s. Like they're all going up. And then Vera Rubin that's coming out, and it's going to get to a megawatt a rack.
A megawatt per rack.
800 volt DC power. Like
how far out are we on that, do you think?
12 months.
Interesting.
Not kidding.
12 months.
12 months. So, yeah, and that's a whole nother topic. But my point with this is that when you look at what people actually need, do they need a megawatt liquid-cooled 800-volt DC-powered rack in the heart of New York? They do not. What they need is air-cooled today. You can get that B200s all the way in there. I can do 50 kilowatts a cabinet. You can do simple solutions like DDC Solutions has a data center in a box. You can now just stack up air-cooled or liquid or anything, and you can put them anywhere. So suddenly we can take these locations
all
that
with
have
air. All air only, huh?
Air or AC or DC or liquid. But the point is you're changing the model. Instead of trying to make this great big building with a lot of stuff distributed, you say that rack is actually a data center. Then you can use the power that's actually at that location. You can use the cooling loops that exist. You can supplement, right? When you augment that deployment, now all of a sudden you could put small clusters that are 50 kilowatts, right? Or a single GB372 in a data center. That's still 1.3 million core. Like it's incredible performance, but I don't need 100 of them or a gigawatt. You use what you have where you have it, and that's where the demand's going to be.
So what are some of the bigger trends right now that you want to share with the rest of the industry that's not going to read this report or hasn't had a chance to get to it yet? What are some of the other things? I mean, I highlighted tons of stuff as I went through it, but there's nothing. I mean, I'm almost hesitant to mention one because there's too many things that I could also forget. There's no one thing. There's no silver bullet in this podcast either. That's why I'm like, I saw this one and I said, hey, listen, for people that were playing it safe, that weren't sure what they want to do, they need to see that the windfall of this opportunity, that we're in a boom. We're in a data center gold rush. We're in that boom. I mean, Every boom has a bust. You saw the last one with, and I do think it'll have something to do with the function of economics. I think that some people will probably get pissed that they're investing in things they don't get a return out of yet. And that'll be one of the things that has a regression. I mean, I think if you look at how we started in this industry, name one of the companies that put fiberglass in the earth that connected the hub and spoke backbone of the fiber back, our US internet.
Way back. Yeah.
But they're not even around anymore. Those companies are, right? So I look at a bust as almost a market correction, like when Savvis and Exodus and those companies had to shift from there.
Right.
And then someone came in and the market corrected itself and they bought them for, not to trivialize it, pennies on the dollar. But the reality is there was a market correction. And I'm not sure if we'll see that on the infrastructure perspective, but I think that what this report told me is you have to keep your head down for the next 3 years and just keep trying to maintain the momentum, because if you're holding on to something right now, whatever it is that you're working with is going to scale in spite of itself or because of itself. And the demand is growing in this industry at a double-digit CAGR, right?
Yeah. Let me tie a few things together. I'm gonna talk about 2025, and then I'm gonna give a little glimpse into 26.
Okay.
This is a report that we're doing now, so I'll tie those in. If you look at the 2025 report, we came up with 5 Ps and a bit of an adjustment. Power is still number 1 because you saw the doubling, right? Perception.
It is such a massive factor now.
It became number 2. And that's because pushback in communities, and I believe it's up to $64 billion worth of investments are either paused or stopped. It's material, right?
Yeah.
Then it became people as well. And we've got planet, but also data protection. So those five, the big, I guess, trends in this is the inference change that's going on. And then there's this thing that it's called Jevons paradox. And this will tie back to your question. So Jevons paradox basically says that the more efficient something gets, the more consumption there will be.
Yep.
So when we now figure out how to optimize AI and do more tokens per watt and those types of things and make it cheaper for people, they'll consume more. So when I say we're going towards inference and this growth that's happening, when companies and people start really finding things that are super useful to them, because right now we're finding productivity gains, but when it all integrates that way, we're going to consume it 24 hours a day on almost everything.
So how do you fight people that have challenges with that from a perception basis, where they're like, hey, you're just taking all of our water?
Yep, exactly. So when you look at the growth, my point is power is going to continue. And will there be a correction? I think there'll be absorption. There's going to be companies that got in too late, paid too much, those types of things, and they'll be absorbed by others. Because this isn't a bubble when it comes down to what we saw in .com. There was a whole bunch of companies that had no meat in their business plan.
Right.
And there was irrational exuberance, and it popped. Here, these are the biggest and most valuable companies in the world. It's going to continue.
But there's some concern about how, you know, when you have AI, you have OpenAI give an order to Oracle, Oracle gives an order to NVIDIA, NVIDIA gives an order to whoever. And next thing you know, they're all just, I think that's where I think some people are worried that we're just feeding money, the same pocket of money in circles to each other to keep each other alive. And I think that's where you see the analysts talk about the vulnerability of a pop, but you're not seeing a pop, or you're not seeing a drop.
I'm not seeing that.
A correction or an absorption.
This is just my personal opinion, but I look at it as, again, it's very different than the last couple times. But think about when the auto industry started doing it.
Right.
Very similar partnerships were put together. Why? Because you need to get to scale. And you need to figure out the way things work.
It was very much like the automobile industry. We didn't have rules. It was the Wild Wild West. Cars were born. They didn't have service teams or service departments or petrol stations. They definitely didn't have driver's license and rules of the road. It took years to catch up to that shit.
Yep.
And that's where we're at right now as an industry, don't you think?
Yep. So I'll end it there, that when you look at it, I believe we're in a transformational time in history. And this is something that is going to fundamentally change the productivity of humans everywhere in the world.
So
that consumption will not slow down.
So do you see a consolidation of how we use AI just based on the limitations of power or the people to build it? Do you think that it'll be allocated more towards energy or healthcare or national security or something else?
I don't think there's a winning industry. I think every industry must have this infrastructure. They must have AI applied to what they do.
But AI is such a dangerous advanced weapon, machine, or tech now that it is a national security feature.
Absolutely.
So I do think that there'll be limitations on the usage from a consumer of AI based on national security features. Do you agree?
Yeah. I think there's rules, again, that have to go in place, because this is a very new and very fast-paced advancement.
Christian once, when I said, what defines an industry as being mainstream? And he's like, it has to be mature by the sense that it has ethics and governance and regulation in some capacity. And we've been kind of self-doing that. IM's been a part of that. Uptime's been a part of that. You know, the DCD. There's groups that have been kind of
figuring out the standards, driving the best practices, driving efficiency.
It's better for us to do it than some clown in government being told. Who's like, this is which is best. Because now we're in a race, like you said. I mean, it's not just the technology for us consumers that find it interesting, but make no mistake, China is trying to outflank us in AI. So it is a national security perspective. And they will build 30 to 40 nuclear power plants between the last 3 years and the next 2 years, and they're still building 100 coal power plants a year. So like, we're not doing any of those things, and we're building AI, and now we're just going off grid, moving it behind the meter and trying to island these things to where they could tie back into the grid in the future. I mean, how do you see that trend playing out?
So it's necessity. In the end of it, we can't get enough power in the right places. So we're moving the data center to the power, but we also can't get enough power turned on fast enough. And if you look at utility grid just in the United States. They've got 96 gigawatts of requests. They can only serve 23. And that's within the time frame. So we just had a meeting last week in Virginia where we brought the advisory council together and we added FERC. So we had the chairman of FERC plus Dominion, right, Energy, and local commissioners and others all working together with hyperscalers, suppliers, independent power producers in the same room. And we're looking at a power accord. Why? How do we get more power delivered faster? And FERC is doing everything they can. The problem is our industry is not helping.
In what way? Oversubscribing.
We're all asking for the same thing. And what is truth? Secondly is that there's a whole bunch of behind the meter things happening out of necessity. Well, guess what? We're material. We are now to the point where we can actually damage the grid based on the draw we have and the workload profile. We have to be active grid participants. So how do we work together? This is why bringing people together and having that conversation to figure that out. Because number one, to compete.
You're trying to merge a free market, a capitalistic free market, with the bureaucracy of the government, though. That is, I don't see that happening anytime soon. I see behind the meter blowing up and being more explosive.
And by the way, like you said, there is no silver bullet.
Yeah.
It's all the above. And to me, off-grid, behind-the-meter solutions with natural gas as a bridge because it's available, and fuel cells and turbines and everything else must happen. But are they a bridge only? Or are they going to be an addition? Is there going to be orchestration between all these sources? I think the answer is yes. You have investments going on to get to market fast, right? Whether it's Crusoe or all the different companies that are actually investing in these things to make it happen. It's about getting power so that we can win the AI arms race in the US specifically, but everywhere in the world is now building their own Stargate. They're all doing sovereign AI when it comes down to them building their own training and things. So this is my point, is the entire world is adopting it. The entire world has the same challenge. Those 5 Ps are the same. So how do they go address it? The largest market in the world in pole position is the United States.
Yes.
Period. We have to double down and do this. And this is why the strange bedfellows have to come together.
Yeah.
And I was really impressed with the FERC commissioner as he went back and outlined it very clearly that, we're not trying to slow things down. We have a national grid that we have to protect. We have policies and things we put in place to ensure we can get it done. We just need to collaborate to see how we can do this safely and as fast as we can. And he said, if you could come back with the things that you agree upon as an industry, we can go move things faster.
Nice.
So it was a gift. He's basically handing us in the room to say, can we get our act together and be able to communicate this? So we're going to go figure out what that looks like. But the point is, power is the number one challenge, and it is the competitive element of everyone in the world when it comes to AI.
What's the solution for power's problem right now?
All the above. It needs to be all sources.
I still think, though, we still need a labor force to go build those distributed natural gas.
Totally different issue. So, but hold on. If you look at it, those 5 Ps are very important but they are compartmentalized yet connected.
Right.
And if I bubble the whole thing up, we are building, or we have, a digital ecosystem. And that term is really important. There's ecosystems that exist.
The automobile industry has the same one. People that make tires, people that make brakes. We have our own ecosystem.
Absolutely. That digital ecosystem only functions at its highest peak when there's balance. And right now we've got a lot of pressures all around it. The need for power, right? We've got a shortage of people. We have industry perception issues. We have policy challenges of stopping different things. And we have the planet aspect of how we build these things sustainably. There are ways to go look at that entire ecosystem and design it so that we can get balance. This is why those clean energy zones are so critical. If we're about to build 3 times the amount of capacity, why don't we master plan it? Let's figure out the right elements that can go together.
Yeah, I don't know of another group that outside of Infrastructure Masons that could actually bring all those luminaries together and get them into a non-competitive mindset. Because right now you could go to a conference and you almost will never see an Amazon or, unless it's the top person, they don't send, the hyperscalers don't send people to conferences because I think they're afraid of people talking and sharing intel. But the reality is it seems like at certain altitudes and airspeeds, there has to be an engagement and collaboration.
Yeah. And there's a perception about the hyperscalers that I think we should change a little. They're doing great collaboration with each other as well. And we see this because we're involved in a number of those.
Yeah.
And they also, Christian brought this up a couple weeks ago. I thought was really important. He used the word commoditization. We got to stop acting like all of our stuff is special. We need to figure out how to build this together.
Sure.
And for the sake of being able to grow at the pace we need to, can we standardize? Because he's talking about commoditization. I look at it as the building blocks are similar. Power, cooling, right? Communications, can we figure out ways in which that stuff could be done more modular? We've talked about this for years.
Sure.
But it can be done in the factory. We can have things that we accept and we can now snap these things in. I totally agree with this because it's the only way we can get there. But that just is like squeezing a balloon. The people problem doesn't go away. It just moves to the factory.
Sure.
Do you have enough people in the factory, electricians and everything else to go build those things? So there's two things that I think are important in this. One is we need to get as many people in our industry as possible. That means we need to communicate this out. But we also, even if we brought all those people in, we still don't have enough people to do all the work. There's the physical aspects of what goes on. There's the logical aspects. But what we need to do is use the technology that we're building for. Can we figure out ways in which we can take people and make them 5 to 10 times more productive by the use of AI technology? 100%.
Absolutely.
And we have to think that way, whether it's in design and construction, operations, delivery,
I think that
all of that.
AI resource platform tools lower the barrier to market entry, because now, I mean, I could put a wearable device on someone's hard hat or chest and let them walk through. It uploads all that content to a repository where someone that has a ton of experience, who doesn't have that time to be on that site, could look at it and probably determine if they're behind schedule based on the technology and their own knowledge, right? But there's so many ways to get people to access this vertical of industry from a career perspective.
Absolutely.
Using AI resource tools. I'm all about it. We're trying to standardize on training for people too.
Yeah.
What do you, I know I'm all over the place a little bit here, but in terms of power and what we're seeing, I do want to hear what your thoughts are, because you stopped just short of 2026. Some of the market trends you see happening in 2026. What are you telling people that are listening right now that are thinking about, they just got in this industry, they're not sure if this is where they want to invest their passion, their talent, or all of their energy or effort into their career, when they could go work in an adjacent industry that may seem a little bit more mature, as an example? But how do we recruit the talent to stay here? What are the trends you see in 2026, which would encourage them over the next 3 to 5 to 7 years to realize this isn't going away. This industry is not going anywhere.
Yep.
It's very stabilized for you to build your career. You could reinvent your entire career. We do it with military people all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, we all started from somewhere in this space. This industry doesn't have a university. I take that back. There's like less than a dozen universities on earth now that introduce data centers in any concept, from community colleges to regular.
Yep.
But there's really no knowledge base of this space. So how do we recruit that talent? And what should inspire them based on your knowledge of 2026, or what the future has to lay beyond that, in which they're like, look, I'm not too late. It's still blue sky. I could come and begin now and still make a change or make an impact, because the soup's not done cooking in this space. Do you agree?
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna frame this in a couple ways. For anybody that is just hearing about our industry, I've been doing this 36 years. I've had fun for 36 years. I started at DeVry Institute, did a 2-year associate's degree, a trade school in electronics. I got hired by Sun Microsystems, and the rocket ship took off from there.
Yeah.
And now I've delivered $10 billion in infrastructure across 4 continents. It's cute in today's things, but I got to do all that.
Yeah.
I had no idea what I was talking about on anything. I just knew what a circuit board was and electrical things in it, and I learned it all along the way. We are in the biggest wave of this industry ever. We are material. We are visible.
Yeah.
The world is dependent on it, and we are building the foundation, the engine for everything that the world will use. That's the heart of it all. That is an amazing place to be. So I would just say, for everybody who's looking at that, also don't be scared about technology. It's like, oh, I'm not technical, I'm not whatever. We need everybody.
I just think of it as a foreign language. Just people that can learn another language can learn the technology.
Yeah.
It's a language, a lexicon.
And this is there's a fast button to it, right? You think about the Data Center 101. There's courses that we partner up with from an iMasons standpoint, from all these amazing educators that can go back and say, in 2 weeks, You've got the Data Center 101 fundamentals. And in that, you could go back and get a job. Great. Get a certificate in 2 weeks, and you have an opening to a job that could make your career for the rest of your life. That is very hard to find. And since we've got the other issue, which is we don't have enough people, bringing your natural skills into something, even though you're not technical, organization, this is why the military is so important, leadership, right? Execution, all those things. Everybody can come in here, apply your skills. You can learn the tech and other pieces along the way. We'll teach.
I always felt like this. This is what I tell people. You tell me if this is a shitty way to. I go, look, experience doesn't matter, because the way we were building data centers 3 years ago isn't even close to what we're doing today. And it's going to be that much different 3 years from now. So
yeah,
does that make sense?
100%.
If you're like, I've been doing it for 25 years, I'm like, that ain't shit compared to what we do now. Like,
that's not relevant today anymore.
Does that make sense? So like, I'm like, I think the only experience that we find value in from a character basis is the ability to learn at an accelerated rate. I think this industry reinvents itself more quickly than every other industry because of the growth of every other industry.
Yep.
The demand of technology, from finance to retail to manufacturing to oil and gas to healthcare, whatever the vertical is, the demand of technology, we are the only industry that feels the ripple effect of every demand of tech.
Yeah.
And I don't think that people that are listening understand, like, you don't have, it's like a sport. Like, if you're just watching baseball, like, just get on the field. If you're watching soccer, get on the field and play. Yeah. And then over the course of time, maybe you want to be in the net, maybe you want to be up front, maybe you're a defender.
Pick what you're good at, what you like.
That's it. Just get in the game. And 100%. I think that people, what advice do you give people about getting into this industry? I in terms of what kind of career growth trajectory? I mean, you talk about your background. I didn't go to fancy colleges. I was enlisted in the Navy, happened to go to some schools in the military when I was on a submarine. And that the ability to use my hands gave me the ability to reinvent myself every 2 years in this space. Like, literally every few years I was moving into a different role. If I couldn't find the opportunity to grow where I was at, then I just grew to an adjacent company as long as I was able to move, because the industry is starving for talent. And there was no limit. I felt like the only thing that they rewarded you on here wasn't where you went to school or how smart you were. It was based on how hard you were willing to work. Like, hard work seemed to solve a lot of problems in this space.
Yeah, it's what you can get done.
So give us some more advice. Like,
well, there are two buckets. If you look at it, we need people that do physical work.
Yes.
We need every trade out there. We need to use every path, because there's no way that we can get this done. So the work that you're doing, that a number of people are trying to go back and say, can we use the trades? We also need to look at parallel industries. What other industries are actually losing jobs, and those people and that talent, that experience that can be transferable to what we're doing? Absolutely. We also need to go after every community college. We need to influence in high school, and we need to go after universities. So it is the gamut of people in all different phases of it. And so, like, for example, I have this new program called the iMasons AI Incubator.
Yep.
This was inspired earlier this year based on a student I found that had in high school received a scholarship award from us, from iMasons.
Nice.
And now I met her at a conference, and she inspired this program because now she's going to NYU.
So what's the program? AI Incubator program.
It's basically connecting students with companies and projects for them to get real world experience, solve real world problems, and built on a dedicated basically AI platform for the students that they get for free.
So there's two types of data center and AI. Like, there's two sides of the coin. One side of it is the technology infrastructure itself, server, storage, networking, software, and all the things. And then there's the MEP side, the mechanical, electrical, plumbing infrastructure, which is the power, that keeps the lights on, the water that keeps it cold. So there's two different types. This AI incubator program focuses more on the technology infrastructure.
Actually, there's three types. If you look at it, there's the mechanical, electrical, then there's the IT, and then you have the software.
Okay.
So the incubator is enabling computer science students, math majors, others, to go back and use the software tools to solve problems. So we're providing that entire platform, which is the culmination of all the pieces you just said. It's in a data center with computer hardware, storage, and GPUs, using a software platform that allows them to go back and run models, do training, do all types of things.
But my point is, that's even better, because now there's 3 times as much opportunity versus twice as much, where some people, I think, get overwhelmed because they think AI and they think, I don't know shit about servers and storage and software. But there are some people that are like, hey, look, I know how electrons are delivered, or I understand that there's a way that we condition air. So, like, my thing is there's 3 career fields you're saying. You could get into the infrastructure that builds the house. You could be in the side of it that populates the house. And then you could be the part of the technology that is a software that operates it, manages it. It's the nervous system.
Yes.
Right. So I think that there's so much opportunity in this space. What are some of the trends you see in 2026 coming that are going to change? I mean, I'm trying to let people know that I want to open the aperture a little bit in how they view this. And really, this podcast could be more for some of the parents that are driving down the road who have kids in high school that maybe they don't want to go to college, maybe they don't want to go in the military. And I do believe that the means and methods and how we deliver data centers will evolve so greatly in the next 2 to 3 years based on the demand of power and people that there's jobs that will exist in 2 years from now that haven't been invented yet that'll be just as important as a brand new trade, whatever that craftsmanship type of position that's going to come. It's not a quote unquote traditional trade yet, like mechanical, electrical, plumbing, glazing, but it'll be a new one that's going to be added to the trades. It's a new craft that's being created and it's going to be focused on the delivery means and methods of power and infrastructure on data centers. I think there's so much upside of growth based on your report. There is so much opportunity for demand for opportunities for 3 different types of career fields. How do you view 2026? I view it as the only thing that's going to stop this industry from growing will be the lack of people, either to build the power or to solve the problems in either your AI incubators or either way. Every problem, if you peel back the problem with that problem enough, you'll still come back to humans.
I'm just going to give you the high level piece of this and how they connect. So I mentioned earlier, I still think this is a digital ecosystem. The digital ecosystem, just like any human, has a whole bunch of things that need to work together. So the things that are going to hold back our industry are still the 5 Ps. So
those are the anchors.
Yep. So if you look at it, but those are either elements within our ecosystem or pressures on our ecosystem. So in other words, power and the pressure of trying to deliver and get power is really straining our industry right now.
It is.
Okay. So we have to get creative ways to go back and do that. Behind the meter, right? Orchestration, all types of things are coming together out of necessity.
We're copying a page out of the playbook of the oil and gas vertical, which goes out and builds island power where they pump for oil in the basins.
Because they need it.
I mean, look, that is the largest vertical of industry in the world right now, right? And we are on a collision course to marry ourselves with them.
Right.
I mean, now you look at data centers. I mean, data centers and power generation plants may be one of the same in the future. There may just be one thing that does both.
Because you got an amazing off-taker right next to that power plant called an AI factory. And it will consume and give you base load and stability, all the things. This is why the clean energy zone and moving the data center to power is so important. Master plan.
I agree. What do you see the trend of power being? Just natural gas as a bridge until we get to nuclear?
Again, it's all the above. If you look at people like Oklo and a whole bunch of that are figuring out SMRs and creative ways to get to nuclear, it's still going to take years to get there. We need it. It is clean. It is stable. It is consistent. The delivery is amazing, but it's going to take time to get there. So I don't see any other means for us to deliver on this without natural gas, especially in the United States, because it's prevalent. It's already piped. Things are in place. So we have to bridge there, but we have to do everything as sustainably as we can. Everything should be about efficiency and how we drive these things to do the lowest amount of carbon, the lowest cost, the lowest impact to a community. Everything needs to be thought of as an ecosystem. That digital ecosystem takes all those into account.
I hear you, but there's going to be so much demand on that ecosystem from a national security basis that we may not be able to achieve sustainability goals as a byproduct of having to compete on an AI basis against another country that we don't want to have.
Absolutely. And look, there's the realist and we would all love to get to a carbon-free future, right? As fast as possible. And I think what we're seeing, because the Climate Accord was born to go decarbonize and drive things down. And that's just another efficiency element of this. It's just environmental efficiency, just like we do with electrical and mechanical and everything else. How do we do this the most efficient as possible? What we're seeing is the amount of growth we've never seen before. It means we're about to build 3 times the amount of stuff. But there are ways in which the companies can still unite via the Climate Accord and apply technologies that allow us to do both. We can capture carbon. We can sequester that carbon. Texas is a perfect example of that. They have 10,000-foot wells You could say, I'm generating power with a fuel cell with a carbon capture system, and it goes back and captures high concentrated CO2, and I put it right in the ground. Or I give it to a bottling company. The point is the byproduct from there can solve 3 different things.
We just have to bring the ecosystem closer together, it sounds like.
It's the innovation that's got to be there, because then it's not about just solving for the planet or just solving for business. It's the digital ecosystem and looking at all aspects to create the balance. And during that point, you've got pressures on that are having a hard causing challenges, right? Like we've gained weight as a body, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Or we don't get enough food. We got to figure out how to solve those things, but still have a balance for the body to optimize the performance.
How do we, as you continue to, and like, I appreciate you sitting down on this podcast because your voice is going to help unify some other voices around here. And the chorus sings louder than the soloist. So we need to have everyone kind of hopefully singing from the same sheet of music as an industry eventually. What's your guidance or advice to us that have to, I do get challenged by people that are very NIMBY focused, right? And they're thinking about how data centers are the worst thing that can happen to their community. How do we combat that? And what's your advice to us? What would be the key word or the tricky phrase we use to debunk that?
Right. Well, 2.5 years ago, this bubbled up. And if you look at the very first report, perception was a big one. And that is essentially the community saying, who are you? Why are you here? And what's the impact?
Yeah.
So we created a thing called the Social Accord. The iMasons Social Accord, if you go to socialaccord.org, is a framework that we apply towards building data centers in local communities. Because the difference here is we have to become of the community, not just in it, of it. Just like you'd have neighbors, how do you go back and balance to make sure it's good for that community?
So you could give some people a bucket of gold. If I gave a bucket of gold to 100 people, I promise you there would be someone that bitches about how heavy it is. So when you go into a community where you're trying to do this, what do you do when there's nothing you're going to be able to do to make these people happy? But we still have to build more data centers.
And there will always be that.
Yep.
And look, if you look at the pushback, perception, again, is number 2 in this for a reason. That the amount of NIMBY, right, and not in my backyard, but also nowhere on Earth, no place,
not over there
planet
either.
Earth. It's two problems. One is a lack of understanding of what the industry is, and that's our fault. We should be talking about this more. And the other one is that how do we, as an industry, figure out how to be good neighbors? Because I think a lot of people think we are. I don't know if we are. I think there's a balance problem here.
What would you think that we may be failing as a good neighbor as an industry, right? Because we're still pretty small.
Number one is, do we really understand what that local community needs? So I've seen this across the board, okay? Because you've got a lot of developers that come in of a very specific thing they want, and so then we're bulldozing this and building a concrete building, et cetera. There's no sense of place in that community. Loudoun County is a great example of it. Incredible economic performance. Okay environmental performance. Not great social performance, right? And so the Social Accord is about the balance of all 3 of those: economic, ecological, and social. So think of it as a spider graph. There's 21 points on that spider graph. You have to figure out a way in which you can balance all 3, because you can kill it economically and the community says this is horrible. You can kill it socially in that one and you can't actually deliver anything.
But there's also a part there, Dean, don't you think that you kind of, like Henry Ford, if he listened to his people, he would have given them bigger horses. There are times where like people don't know what they don't know. Why are we letting them stop us from helping? Is there any evidence, I should say, that you've seen or you've seen access to in which going into an industry and building a data center has had a negative impact on community?
There can be some environmentally, but it just comes down to how it's done. Like Christian gives a great example. They thought they were doing the right thing and realized they planted the wrong trees and disrupted the water table and other things. But once they knew it, they corrected it.
Okay.
And this is what I mean. When you take that framework, to me, it's all about systems. If I can walk into an environment and understand how that system works, I can go figure out how to balance that system. And I can now make that the best for the majority of people that are there. Will you solve everything for everyone? No.
There you go.
But will you be able to actually achieve something that is actually making that community better? We have to listen as much as we're talking, or even twice as much to understand it. And then we need to apply a common framework. And this Social Accord is really important because it doesn't matter. You can look at it globally, regionally, locally, or hyper-locally. And it must be that way. And the reason is Loudoun County, Virginia is a very advanced market, largest data center in the world. It's very different than Lagos, Nigeria.
Yeah.
Doesn't have any infrastructure, yet there's 26 million people in that city and they need it and they want it. Where in Loudoun County, they say, we don't need it, yet they use it every day. There's a balance here of how do you really look at a community at that point with its maturity and figure out what they need and figure out a balance. You have to have a framework that can be applied. If not, it's one-offs everywhere. You'll never get anywhere.
Interesting. So have the infrastructure masons kind of helped do a study that kind of shows specific geographies over certain parts of the world or the United States that is more accretive than others for data centers to be built?
Yeah. I mean, if you look at almost anywhere there's power, you can figure out the right balance to build a data center. Doesn't matter if it's dry, wet, etc. There's ways to go back and solve it because that power is important. Every community in which a data center is put in place has better economic performance.
There you go.
Period. Right? But how do you make sure that you help that local community? Because it's not just about the economic development offices or the government officials or the commercial industries. It's about the people that live and work there. And that includes us. So it all comes down to listening and understanding. And it's not a one and done. This is what I think, if you look at all other parallel industries that have had pushback and challenges, what did they do? They went down, sat down, broke bread, understood, and they were there like a neighbor would be, that when they call, we can figure that out. Now, you may not agree on everything, but the majority of the stuff you do.
I think some of the problems with NIMBY will take care of themselves because, as you said, the pattern that exists today is we used to go just to the NFL cities, and then it started going to the secondary markets that are pent up. Now we're going to where the power's at. Sometimes those are in places that are pretty bespoke, right? So no one's going to see those things, right? So we're going to go build data centers that have smaller communities, lesser probability of a negative impact. If anything, it's going to be a massive job creation. I mean, can you imagine owning a restaurant in Abilene or a bar or anything?
Yeah.
Because there's such a massive demand for housing and everything that goes with putting a workforce together. Where in that triangle market, Abilene, Amarillo, Ursula type of thing, you're talking about 15 gigs between those,
easy.
And that is, a gig will have how many people will you have on Stargate by the time you're done building it? 8,000 to 10,000 people. You leave 1.5 person back to operate it per megawatt. Let's say it's it's a gigawatt, right? So I mean, you're leaving how about the people that just have to go back? Imagine doing preventive maintenance on the batteries there, and by the time you're done, you got to start back over at the building again because
it's like painting the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yes,
by the time you get back,
don't ever stop.
Do it again.
Isn't that crazy, right? So we're getting to where do you see some of the biggest challenges, or do you see a lot of drag on the industry? I think it's just going to be massively explosive. I see PPAs becoming solvable. I see supply chains being. I mean, we have clients that are putting down deposits for Q3 of 2027 for shit right now. So they're getting ahead on supply chain. Land banking's been taking place for years, right? I see a lot of growth, accelerated growth next year. I don't see a lot of barriers slowing us down, at least next year, with the exception of the lack of humans. I
do think that our biggest challenge is going to be industry pushback.
Like the perception at all. Once we become a whole, once this industry goes mainstream, which sounds like it's tipping point right now.
It's already here. We're on CNN. We're on Fox. We're on data centers.
But they're not talking to you. They're not talking to the other leaders of this industry. They're bringing in guys like Mike Rowe, which I'm not going to trivialize what Mike Rowe does. But what does he know about data centers? He just knows about cool jobs and he's a cool dude, right? My thing is there needs to be people talking about this industry at the mainstream level. We don't have representation, I don't think, at a larger scale yet.
Yep. And I think that one thing that also came out last week was the head of Dominion was there. He explained the benefits of our industry better than anybody else did.
And which change, it's not just a function of economics, but is it does change communities by offering a lot of jobs and things.
But the point is, somebody in parallel industry told about our industry better than we do. So that the other gift they gave last week was if you guys could be unifying your voice. To me, that comes down to if we could figure out, we need to say what that campaign is. The example I use is the dairy industry. Wanted to get more exposure. They created the Got Milk campaign. What was it? Got milk. It's good for you. It's whatever. Like everybody's drinking. So what is our campaign for our industry? What are the things that we need to go back and help educate? And how do we engage with those communities? Because it's global. And so we don't have a single voice on this. And iMasons is trying to help when it comes down to how we can unite the builders of the digital age. But I think we need to grow up as an industry when it comes down to how we communicate the industry. Because without it, people will fill in the blanks. They will put in things that they think are true that are not. And it will amplify the voice of one to many that will cause things to slow down. And it's, again, I want to make sure there's a balance here. This is not about they don't understand. When you say they, you're attacking a specific group saying they don't get it. This is about us. And the us is we are about to go become a neighbor. We need to understand what that community needs. We need to understand our own limitations and our own knobs we can turn to go balance that community ourselves. There are certain things that we can do that are very different than we've done past. It's not about buying soccer balls and
how do we get there? Because I don't see like the CEOs of those companies going into those markets and that being, I mean, they have shareholders, they have clients, they have a whole team of people that work. Like, whose job is it to go incubate that community? Is it Infrastructure Masons? I think iMasons is, again, a professional association that's helping to unite. And so we've come up with a framework that can be applied by anybody. And that's how it should be done, is each of those companies can go in, because this isn't about them saying, oh, do I have to do that? This is a necessity. If you're going to go build the biggest infrastructure in the world, you need to figure out how you're going to go into a community and do that. That takes a little more maturity and an investment to go make it happen. What got us here is not going to get us there. We have to rethink how we're doing this, because we are bigger than ever, we're more visible than ever, and we'll have more impact than ever. It can be both positive and negative. How do we make it all positive? We have to understand where we live and work, and who lives and works there, and how we build responsibly across every angle. Then we achieve balance for that digital ecosystem and our neighbors. No, I love it. I love it. So listen, I'm not trying to speed talk us through this stuff, but of this market report, give some people some ideas of what all they're going to find if they read this report. I mean, I wasn't, like, you knew my objective wasn't to go through and read the whole report over this, but I did want to get people more, I want them to feel more responsible to themselves, their businesses, their careers, obviously, but to the companies they work for.
Sure.
To understand where we're going as an industry versus just, I think a lot of people sit in the passenger side of the bus and just ride. That I'm going to do, it sounds like they're saying that this is cool, I'm going to go do that too. But I really think that people need to understand, I mean, to be a really mature industry, have to have people that are really knowledgeable about the industry. We have a lot of people participating through the windfalls and the growth opportunities of this industry. But they're the ones, when I open the bar at DCAC, that they're just at the bar at 10 o'clock in the morning. They're not listening to the speakers. But you can see that the people that are listening, man, that growth, that crowd, a lot of conferences I go to, not a lot of people are even sitting down listening. Normally it's like your friends and a few other people, but getting someone to sit down and actually listen to something for 30 minutes is hard. You know that.
Sure.
But now we're getting more people sitting down, genuinely trying to scratch the paint and understand this space more. And I'm like, I don't know of a better report right now that's more relevant than yours to tell them, like, this is going to let you zoom out and see the bigger picture. Like, the only complaint I had is, I'm like, I want to see more meat on the bone about just America, because I'm so selfish in America, but it's a global
right program. There with you. Oh yeah.
Hey, look, I have an office in London, right? So my thing is there's so much stuff in this State of the Industry report. What are some of the things that you'd like people that are listening for the first time, give them some context of what all they're going to find in there? Because how much time, this is a 55-page report. How long does it take you guys to write this thing?
All year. And the beauty is that we're gathering content from every local chapter meeting, individual interviews, member meetings, advisory council sessions, industry partnership type conversations. And all of that weaves into, we're going to tell a story about where things are. It's the pulse of what's happening in the industry, and it's super important that you understand it. There's an executive summary in there. In the first couple pages, you can at least get the gist of what it is. And so our CEO, Santiago Swanaga, outlines that really well inside of that, just to get an idea.
Sure.
But what I would say is, I found, because I went back and reread 24, it's all still relevant. And it all builds upon each other. And 25, and now you look at 26, this is like a story that's building over time. And
I gave this report to our investors. We just did a capital Series A round, and they're like, hey, what are some of the industry reports you think are most relevant? I'm like, look, you could Google and you're going to get a ton of shit. I said, right now, the one that's going to give you the most value, bang for your buck, is going to be this one right here. So, I mean, what in this report, it doesn't tell us how we go out as an industry, unified industry, to combat the challenges we face locally from people that have pushback on the data center industry. What should we be arming ourselves with to go challenge people back and be like, hey, you think that all we're doing is consuming all your energy, consuming all your power or your water? That's not true, right? We're getting like, I'm trying to explain to people how we're shifting into a completely different hybrid model from a mechanical solution.
Right.
That is
waterless.
Exactly.
It's closed loop. It's again, it's people's understanding. They fill in the blanks. And when you get senators going and saying that data centers are causing cancer, it's like, okay, whoa, we got to really get people educated on what it is. Literally, that came out just a couple days ago. The way that it was framed, that's every data center is actually causing these. I was blown away. It's just it's a misunderstanding of who we are, and it's a sensationalism of a lot of the things that are happening. But I also don't want to dilute. We go into certain areas, we may have negative impact. We need to understand what that impact is, and we need a way to mitigate those things. But the only way to do that, it goes back to a system again. This is a digital ecosystem. How do we approach it? So to answer your question, in the report, we mentioned the social accord. There's a framework. The framework is there, and every company can go back and adopt that framework and go into any community and figure out how to go back and actually become of the community via this framework. And if you go to iMasons.org/publications, there is a whole bunch of stories, podcasts, papers, other things, digestible content. Right? It's in there very quick. But we also have a thing, if you go to socialaccord.org, you'll see the framework. And there is a podcast that goes into a fictitious story about the implementation of the social accord in a market over 5 years, and how they changed the perception of the community by applying this. And I thought it was just brilliantly done. And our writer, his name is John Roach. He came on full time last year. He was, worked with the Times and a bunch of things. Nice. And he's been writing this content. He just basically constantly interviews and gets things. And then Santiago, myself, and others, we weave all this together into the reports that you see and to those publications that are out there. They're all really useful. And I would say, like, I drive from Los Angeles or San Francisco to Los Angeles to see my daughter. And on that, I throw on the podcast and I'm listening. They're 13 minutes long, right? Whatever else. And I get a whole bunch of stuff on all the companies, what they're doing, how that ties to the principles that we're doing with iMasons. And so it's just great. The point is there's really good content around it. These reports are more important than ever for us, right? Primarily because we're able to share the summary of that information from 500 executives driving over $1 trillion of stuff. It's incredible,
I think that report was very, very relevant, and it actually gave me a lot of intel. Talk to me about this Interglobix magazine. Yeah. I know that you contribute a lot to this. Mm-hmm. What's this article on right here, this creating data oasis? What's this all about? This is you taking...
This is our community again. I took a delegation over to the Middle East. So we went to Riyadh, we went to Dubai, we went to Neom and saw Oxagon, which, if you've never heard of that, it's incredible. But the point was that here's the Saudi Arabia and other areas, like, they're not getting the AI factories and things. So we went over and said, here's why you're not. And of that, it was data protection, because they have power, they've got people there, they don't have perception problems, right? And they have one of the most sustainable deployments in the world with the lowest cost, cleanest energy anywhere. Why are they not getting data centers? Why are they not? Because they have the money, they have the ability to do it. And it was about keeping the data private. So they created this thing called a data oasis or data embassy and a data safe harbor policy that was actually published a few weeks after we went over there. And that allows to say you can bring data in, train it, and have the data go out, and it can't be seized. All of a sudden, you open the door to the lowest cost energy and things. Now, back this up a bit. If you look at U.S. first, what we're trying to do within the U.S., we're in pole position. When they start solving certain things and other governments start solving things that now start to attract it, it starts to potentially take away.
Yeah.
We got to keep pole position. So going right back to, I live in America, right? I have a global organization, but in the end, you look at it, there's 139 gigawatts in the pipeline within the Americas. Holy crap. That's a lot of demand, right? And we've got to be able to deliver that. But the point is, this delegation we went over there was, I brought NVIDIA, Oracle, Microsoft, JP Morgan Chase, Apple, and another bank. And we brought them back in and we sat down with the ministries. To do what? iMasons bridged between industry and the government and policy.
So
to give them information.
And how was it received?
Incredibly well. We were received, and they listened and they adjusted things. And I think it's going to help that part of the world. Brazil, Mexico, right? You look at across the different parts of Europe, same thing. We want to bring the information over to help those markets grow.
So, I mean, let's bring this podcast home here in a little bit, not to speed walk it through, but like zoom out. What's your prediction for all of us that are listening, and what advice do you have us when we are challenged with people that want to talk about the negative impact of data centers on communities? How do you want to arm us? What do we defend ourselves with?
I would flip it around and ask the question, so what are the challenges you're facing? What can we do to help? Because if you take it away from the data center, it's like understanding that neighbor, just like you break bread with somebody. It's like, let me understand who you are. Help me understand. And so in that community, you might find things that you can do, some very simple things to solve some of their problems that changes the perception. Because you're helping that neighbor understand, and right within it, just like anything, when you get to know somebody, you don't have a preconceived notion. It's human. Right. And you start to understand them a little more. And then you're more forgiving and you try to do things in a little different way. But you have to be a good neighbor if you want them to be a good neighbor to you.
I think that's a cultural thing though too, right? I think that like you said, there's no silver bullets, but a broad stroke that you paint with. I could see that as being a good person, but that doesn't, like, there's still going to be someone that comes out and I get all kinds of things on my feed where there's some lady right now who she's constantly, that's her job, is to post stuff about what's bad about data centers all the time. I'm sure you've seen her recent post coming up, but in my mind, I'm like, someone needs to sit down with this person and explain to them certain things, because I think the optics and how they view things is they need to turn the binoculars around and they need to see the good that it does versus, at the end of the day, overall, it has a greater, more positive impact on humanity and society. Technology, you may not like it, but what happens when your kid shows up at the ER and you need the doctor to be able to get access to something that could save their kid's life in a minute? You're not going to be sitting there going, well, listen, man, I wish that we didn't have that data center right now. You're going to be like, I'm glad that we had these down the road, right? So what are your predictions then? And what do you want to leave with us for? I'm hoping that people that are listening are going to like, look, there's 1,000 reasons now why I'm going to read this market report. And I think that hopefully there's some people that are like, you're right, I need to start taking my shit a little bit more serious. I'm going to start reading some more of these reports. It's a great one to start from. The Interglobics magazine, I told you, I'm a huge fan of that magazine. There's only one part about it that I always see that has a blind spot in. But other than that, it covers everything else. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So for
There's a way to mitigate that. You should write some articles, Kirk. Because I think you might be the foremost expert in it.
Well, look, I'll tell you this. Yeah. People talk about problems all the time. I'd like to see these magazines talk about solutions just as much. And there's a huge challenge with labor across the board.
Absolutely.
And I think everyone knows it, but someone else is assuming that someone else is trying to fix it. I'm trying to fix it for sure, but this is a big industry. It's going to take a lot of people rowing in the same direction. Yeah. Even at the altitude and airspeed you cruise at, you have a hard time getting people to follow the things that you're doing, and you're an authority at a lot of the things that we do. A lot of people look at you as the burning bush and some of the things that we talk about, right? So I think it's interesting. I'd like to continue to have these type of conversations with you. I've got to have these with you with other crowds, but it's always better to unpackage the things that you're seeing, because you seem to be one of the groups that is, you have more exposure to everything. So the visibility that you have is, to those that are on the inside looking out, they're limited. You're on the outside looking in, and you have a technology company, a day job too, in addition to infrastructure masons. So I look at this and go, what do you have advice for us? You're rolling these out. What other things do you recommend that we listen to, or what are some of the things that you see coming that if there's people that are listening, they should be inspired by that, or they should be sharing that with their kids?
I would say there's two simple things. One is that education is always good. I would go digest as much of the report as you can.
For sure.
Listen to the podcast. Listen to there's a way to go back and get information that is within your schedule. You can make it work. It is for your best interest. The other one is, how do you get involved? So this, we are blessed with a community of people that actually care. And I see and am inspired by so many incredible people that actually want to do something. And that's what you see within the community of iMasons, people that are taking their time, going into a meeting, leaving their company at the door, and working together on something.
On a real industry problem, not their problem.
Yep. And then we provide a platform that allows us to say, great, we're going to bubble that back up and say there's an industry movement like the iMasons Climate Accord, what we're doing with education, like the incubator we're growing, the new social accord that's being emerging, the power accord that is out there, right? Like all of that are efforts that the community has essentially built up as very, very focused ways that we can go back and make a difference in this. And it's for everybody. So I would say everybody's welcome in iMasons. Everyone should be in iMasons, and they should participate. These meetings, local chapters, everything we have around the world are really useful. Your network grows. And I got to say, we had the Silicon Valley chapter kickoff. We've been almost around 10 years. I live in the Silicon Valley. We didn't have a local chapter. It kind of blew my mind.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. So we had the first one just 2 weeks ago.
Because everyone was just in the national chapter, I guess.
Yeah, we were just there because there was a bunch of leaders that lived there. So we had member meetings and AC and all that, but we never really had a local chapter. Now we brought it back together, held it at Bloom. It was great.
That's cool.
Then we had the Cascadia chapter the week before that. Then we kicked off the Denver chapter, and we kicked off the Rio chapter for Brazil. So it's just, there's so many more that could happen because we are everywhere.
That's great.
We're building everywhere, and that community needs to be together, because when you come together, you compound your impact.
Yeah.
We've seen it time and time again in here. The unity causes positive movement.
I love it. Well, what else didn't I ask you in this podcast that I'll have to wait for the next one, but what do you want to leave us with? Anything that I didn't ask you that you think is worth mentioning?
I'm just going to leave one thing about what I started with. I'm inspired by a number of things, but I believe that there is a program that we've not launched here called the iMasons AI Incubator that could have the biggest impact in my career, primarily because we can reach an audience we normally don't reach. We're getting the companies elevated to the AI level. We're getting students that are in AI that are looking for jobs connected. And every time we do that, that's going to now advance our ability to solve the problems we have. Imagine.
Is this really targeted and focused on college students? Mm-hmm. What about kids that don't want to go to college but understand AI?
We should have to send them to your schools.
Okay.
Trade schools need to be like, look, this is what I mean. It's everyone.
Yeah.
We have to have all levels. We've got to serve, because we need technology, we need operations, we need engineering, we need hands. We need builders.
I'm working on an incubator of my own right now for the trades and the crafts, where there's exposure to HVAC, welding, mechanical, electrical, so carpentry. And it's just because we don't know what that perfect job's going to be in 2 years from now that's necessary. But I do know that I'll have a tradesman type of demand or a craftsman type of skill set that's required to be able to serve it. And right now we're just trying to build a basic platform for people so they can understand which path is going to probably have the most opportunity for them individually. Plus it has to align to where they're at individually. Yeah. You know, some people like welding, while some people love electronics or, being electricians. So,
find what you love to do and go.
Listen, thank you for taking the time. I know I texted you on a weekend. I'm like, Dean, can you come do this one?
Absolutely.
Because this one was too important, and I wanted to emphasize this report over all of them this year to make sure, if you have not had the chance to read the Infrastructure Masons State of the Industry report from April this year, it's absolutely relevant still today. So it's going to help you understand the magnitude of impact that's happening to industry. When we tell you that we're building 10 gigs right now, and 93% of it's already been pre-leased. You know how long it took in the United States before we had 10 gigs?
Yeah.
And now we're doing it in a year. But I want people to understand
Yeah.
right? And I think the more they understand where we come from, they could connect the dots and they'll see the linear trend and they could pace themselves with us, right? So
absolutely,
it's important to have these conversations, and having a guy like you with your magnitude on this podcast is a huge honor. So thank you so much, Dean.
Thanks for having me on. As always, love being here.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thanks.